Today, Tennessee lawmakers will be back in Nashville for the start of this year's legislative session. Hundreds of bills will be introduced and debated on both the House and Senate floors.
There could also be some discussion over bills that did not make it through last session. Sarah Ottman joins us in the studio to explain. Good morning.
Good morning, Abby, Heather. This is the second year for the General Assembly, which means some of those bills that you mentioned that failed or never made it to the floor could be reintroduced by lawmakers. But they will have to compete with hundreds of new bills. One new proposal deals with marriage law in Tennessee. The bill from Representative Gino Bolso states that private individuals and organizations would not have to recognize same-sex marriages if it conflicts with their beliefs. It also states that lawyers and those involved in marriage paperwork would not be disciplined for refusing to take part in certain ceremonies. Bolso is also the sponsor for another marriage bill that is still active from last year. If passed, it would create a special type of marriage called a covenant marriage. Couples would go through counseling and agree to stricter limits on divorce, but it would only apply to a man and a woman. Critics argue these bills are rooted in discrimination and religious motivation. Supporters argue they strengthen marriage and promote traditional values. One bill also being introduced would set up a statewide process for recalling local elected officials before their term ends. Right now in Tennessee, we don't have one uniform recall system. This proposal would allow voters to collect signatures to force a recall election for positions such as mayor, county commissioner, or school board members. Supporters say it restores accountability to the people, while critics argue it risks turning local democracy into vengeance campaigns. These are just a handful of bills we can expect starting this week. In our next half hour, we'll hear from East Tennessee lawmakers and what their focus is for this year's legislative session. For now, I'm going to send things to Sam Perez, who's checking out how this legislative session could impact drivers in East Tennessee. Good morning.